Sometimes life goes so fast you just need to step back and take a time out. If you're really lucky, you can spend that time picking the brain of Blue Jackets head coach John Tortorella. We could only find one guy brave enough to do it. Here's Bob McElligott and Timeout with Torts.
Torts, I want to start today with something that obviously is near and dear to your heart because it is the Christmas season now, and that's a point of year where some people will go out and get themselves a new pet. And, of course, dogs and rescue dogs is something that is very high on your priority list. For people that are thinking about maybe doing that, what is your suggestion to them as far as where they can go? What's the process like in your mind, especially when you're looking to help some of these dogs?
Number one thing, don't go to a breeder. There are so many wonderful animals in these shelters, and everybody thinks, and there is a high population of pit bulls in these shelters, there's no question, but there are so many other dogs of all different breeds. To me, that is the first. And Bobby, I don't want to get high on my horse here because I just think so deeply about shelters and shelter dogs. I'm not trying to be the smartest guy in the room here. It's just the way I feel about it. I think you go there and you see some of these dogs just looking for a chance, all different breeds, you're going to find something. And it's a scary time of year for me when it comes to animals because I think people really have good hearts. And during the year, they're out at the shelters, they're walking the dogs, they're taking care of the cats. We're involved in some horse shelters since we've moved out here, taking care of the animals. But then people start getting busy during the holiday season with their families and important stuff. They get busy and they forget for a few weeks those animals that are caged. And it's the coldest time of year and all that stuff comes into play and they kind of get forgotten about. It's worrisome because you know what? My wife and I lived through it in New York where we lived 2 miles from a shelter in New York, and we'd have Thanksgiving and Christmas and being gluttonous about it. And little did we know that there, 2 miles down the street, there were 30 dogs locked up. And no one even knew they were there because people, the nonprofit and the people that ran that shelter just kept them in their cages. And that was during that one of those holidays when we were told about it, it's the first time we got a view of that place. And that's what started our whole odyssey here as far as trying to help. And it kind of getting on a little soapbox here. But yeah, I just think it's such an important time of year not to forget about, those animals that are stuck and looking for a way out.
And you're not getting on a high horse. I ask you this for a purpose because you're very in tune with it. So even just going and helping out, there are people that work at these shelters, but it is volunteers that really drive a lot of this, isn't it?
Oh my God, yeah. The volunteers are the people that are hands-on, going out there to walk the animals. That some of these animals just don't get out of their cage, and then when people come and visit the animals, they think they're too high because they're cage crazy because of the shelter life, and so it turns into a vicious circle. They get stuck there, and they end up dying there. And listen, the people that run them, and our experiences, and a lot of these shelters are on shoestring budgets. You don't know how hard they work. They are doing so many things, but the lifeline for them are the people coming in there, the public coming in there, out of the goodness of their heart to help out. Okay, can I clear it? Can I clean the cat area for you here today? Can I take 4 or 5 dogs out here for a 20-minute walk? There are so many different things you can do as a volunteer to take the pressure off of these hardworking people just to keep these animals safe. A lot of these animals are taken away from people because they're afraid they're just being totally abused. They're safe in a shelter, but the people that are running the shelter need so much help just to run that part of it. And then the volunteers can come out and really try to take some pressure off of them.
Wonder how many volunteers wind up with some of those animals at home as part of their family.
Yeah, and that's what happens. It is, you end up, it's funny because we just had my wife and I just helped out with a dog from Louisiana that we ended up getting to a shelter in New York. Now it's a foster. And my wife were just fist pumping, foster, yeah. Foster usually ends up adoption. because you fall in love. And, so there's a lot of different – you just want to get the right people, and you want them to see the right dogs. And, it's so emotional. It is such a roller coaster. Animal welfare, it's an emotional roller coaster for people that are doing it, because you have good days and then you have horrible days.
When you talk about fostering, it's I don't know how many people think about that, and I forgot about it until you mentioned it. I know it's there and people can do it. How much do you recommend that for somebody that thinks that they might want a pet, they're not 100% sure, and they just want to see if they can handle it, plus help out that animal at the same time?
Yes, just for that little while, just to normalize a living situation for that animal. And I think that's the right way to go, because then you're not. I think one of the worst things you can do is adopt, bring it in, and you're all set to go, and then a month later say, you know what, I don't want to do this, and you bring it. That harms the animal even more.
That happens too, doesn't it?
Oh, it certainly does. It happens on a regular basis, and. I do. And again, I say again to you and to the people that are listening, I'm not an expert at this. I'm just speaking from my heart, is just go see them. Spend a couple of weeks going there 3 or 4 times a week to walk this certain dog that you have interest in, and see if it's a match. You're going to know if it's a match, I'll tell you right now, because it's not analytics, Bobby, I'll tell you right now. It's called feelings. It's called feelings in your heart. So there are no numbers involved in this.
Your team has been very fortunate when it's come to injuries. You've had some this year, but they haven't been big. They haven't been very long-term. All of a sudden, the other night, Zach Wierenski gets hurt. That is a big one, and it's looking at maybe 4 weeks here for Zach. And Zach seemed to me like he was back to where he was in his rookie season. In fact, I think he was a little bit better. I think he was scoring points like he did as a rookie, but I think that defensive training you put him through last year that drove him crazy was really starting to pay off. Do you agree?
Yeah, he was becoming a complete player. And we had a talk, Jonesy, him, and I, when we were really struggling 2 or 3 weeks ago. I mean, just generating any type of offense. And it was kind of release the hounds. And judging from your first part of this conversation, was release the hounds, and I wanted them up the ice more. They needed to start leading the way offensively for us. And I think it really helped his offensive game too. The biggest thing for me with Z is we needed to get a base, a foundation of how you're going to play away from the puck. We know we can't coach your offense. He's so instinctive, and he's just so good that way. That isn't going to be taught by a coach. We wanted to just get him a little bit more onto the understanding what it takes competitive-wise as far as playing away from the puck. He's really bought into that, and he's become a really good player. It's a huge blow for us. What am I going to do? What are you going to – you just go about it. He's got to give other guys opportunities. Kukan has really grown in his game. Harry comes back into the lineup. This is what we have. And the 5 guys that played basically the whole game against the Islanders, because he went out so early, I thought they played really well. And so it puts more responsibility on people. And eventually when Z comes back, and if I know him, it's a month. I think he'll be knocking on the door before that. I think we're going to be a better team because it gives other guys chances in those opportunities that we're going to miss with him.
How much is your personal relationship with him developed? And I'm asking you that because I hear you talk about him now, and I've heard you talk about him in the past, and it just seems like maybe you were at one extreme, he was another extreme, and that you guys have met in the middle and now understand each other.
I think we have. I don't want to speak for him. Yeah. I've always liked the kid. And I've said it to you many times. I look at some of the young guys that have come into this league and how they act. It's out of control for me. It's so arrogant how some of these young kids present themselves before they even play. And not with this guy. I think he could be a role model for when he came to us out of college, the way he handled himself, didn't say boo, just went about his business. Just he was so ahead of the schedule as far as what it is to be a pro. Always loved that about him. We had some tough times. I'm not the easiest guy to get to know. As far as
really?
Yeah. Well, as far as my coaching too, what I'm trying to get out of you, and he's a very quiet kid, and I'm trying to figure him out, as everybody does when you ask about Z. They think he's lazy, going back for pucks, and he's lazy. It's the way he plays the game. It's the way how efficient he is as a skater. It took me a little time to understand him too. for me, I'm not going to speak for him because he may something to say. I think we have a great relationship, and I really enjoyed watching him develop. That's the coolest thing for a coach, is to watch a player develop. And that's been fun for me. And this is, I'm sure he's very frustrated because he's very confident in his game right now. So it kind of knocks him down for a little bit.
Seth Jones has started to score some goals here lately. As you said, you told him it's time to get going. You know, you look at his point total and you go, okay, well, he's that looks good. But we've seen him be so much better in the way that he has played. And what do you think in the last few games? Is he becoming more noticeable? Is he getting back to his old self for you?
Yeah, I think the situation that he was put in the island was good for him. I think his game has been coming. There's no question. Jonesy has been a good player for us, but good isn't good enough for him because he's that good, if I can say it that way.
Yeah, he can be a great player. We've seen a great player.
Yes, he is a great player, and someone I think has not been given enough notice as far as what he does on both ends of the ice. I think his game is getting better. I think the Islander game helped him because he knew that he had to carry the rope even more. And I heard that his coach down there during the game, keep on pushing us through it. Keep on pushing us through it. I think that's what Jonesy needs. Now he has even more responsibility. I think he wants that, and I think that'll get him to the level that we need him to be at. He hasn't been there. He'll probably readily admit it too. He hasn't been to the level that we've seen him play at. He's getting there.
Also, you and I have talked before about the number of defensemen you need. You know, you come into training camp and you go, okay, who are going to be the 6? And then is there going to be a 7th? Oh, you're going to keep 8. And you've always said by the time it's over, you need 11.
You never have enough. Right? Yeah, you never have enough, yes. And great reports down in Cleveland on where Carlson was kind of going by the boards. His name wasn't talked about for a couple of years now. He's really improved playing well. We got the young righty down there that's really playing well. Who else? I mean, Clendening can come up here, and like he stepped in last year a couple of times and just stood right in there. Yeah, so we have some people down there. We have Harry waiting in the wings here, who's been chomping on the bit. He's going to get the first whack at it. Nudie is getting healthy, I guess. We'll see where he's at. Yeah, you never have enough, though. At the end of the year, everybody's looking for that defenseman.
And for the people that love young players, that righty is Andrew Peak that you're talking about.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Did I say his name?
No, you didn't, but that's okay. You're a coach. I don't expect that. Because most times as coaches, either you don't say the names or when you do, you say it wrong, so it doesn't matter.
I've done that a few times. But Peaker has and that's a right-hand shot.
But you want him to play, right? I mean, he's a young guy. You want him to play.
Yes. We're going to probably call someone up here, and just in case we need someone right away. But in my mind, the way I feel about it, you keep the young guys playing down there, but I also want to try to get some young guys some experience here when we have a spot for them to give them an opportunity.
And you and I have talked about this before, but that minor league experience is so valuable for those guys. I mean, I don't know how you were, but I didn't appreciate that experience until I got here. Yeah. And I found out that when I got here, and even to this day, I've been here 10 years, most of the stories I tell are about the minor leagues.
Yeah, it's a different way that you have to go about your business. It's harder. You have to take care of yourself. No one's kissing your ass, quite honestly, in the bubble that we live in, as we talked on the last show. You got to shop. This league here, the National Hockey League, they're feeding you all the time. You have to do very little with that. Riding the buses, I think the camaraderie down there, riding the buses is really important. And as a defenseman, as we're talking about here, in that league, everybody's chasing you around. It's not as organized as the National Hockey League. You got to figure it out as you're playing, and because it's a hard league to play in, because not a lot of guys are in the right position at certain times for defensemen to make an outlet pass like it is here in the National Hockey League. You got to figure it out along the way. It's a great training ground, especially for that position.
Now, all of that being said, these guys are playing in Cleveland, where the Cavaliers play. It's a major league city. Yeah. It's not like the days where you were in Rochester. I was in Syracuse.
Oh my gosh, Syracuse! Don't put Roch in with Syracuse. But
they're an hour away.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I remember in Roch, I had that, and I was the only coach. I had no other coach, and I had an office. I mean, it was a 4x4 office. I mean, But it was such a great experience, and even in the league below that, you were in it with Scotty Allen. And
did you? Let me ask you a question. Yes, I was there with Scott Allen. He was the coach in Johnstown. When you were there, it was the Atlantic Coast Hockey League. Is it true that you renamed it the East Coast Hockey League?
Yes, I did. It was the Atlantic Coast Hockey League. It was the American. What was it called? I forget what it was. It was, you talk about shoestring budget. 6 teams at one time. I mean, and it was
one guy owned at least 4, right?
Henry Brabham. It was my owner. When I coached in Virginia, he was my owner. He kept it all together. You would not have the East Coast Hockey League if it wasn't for Henry Brabham, because he put all the money in there. Bill Coffey, owner of Winston-Salem at that time. The All-American Hockey League, that's what it was. It went to that. Now it's the East Coast Hockey League. Yeah, we sat around, and I forget when it was. Was it during the summer or what? I don't know. And I was with some owners. Henry brought me with him. He was my owner. And I threw that name out there, and I did. And if someone tells you I didn't, they're lying.
On the internet, it really says that you did. And I'll tell you, it says that it was in a Ramada Inn in Winston-Salem, and I believe every word of that.
Yes, it was. Yes. I mean, I think about some of the experiences down there. I'd wake up. I was the general manager, travel guy, coach, everything down there. And you wake up in the morning and just I make a call to my owner. Is the league still going today? Because you never knew if it was going to fold. Right. And you talk about a great learning experience and learning how to do all that stuff. It was fabulous. And, I wouldn't trade that road and spending some years down there to do all that stuff for anything. I think it's great value.
Where'd you come up with the name?
I don't know. We were banging it around, and my owner, Henry Brabham, he's struggling now. He's in a wheelchair. He's getting older. Smart as a whip, though. Great businessman. I don't know how it all came about, but I just talking to you, I think about can't talk about some of the stuff here with you. Oh my God! But great training ground.
Absolutely, yes, very good training ground. With Blue Jackets head coach John Tortorella, some of your core guys that you have offensively, they all came through that. Cam Atkinson spent some time in the American Hockey League. Josh Anderson won a championship in Cleveland. Nick Foligno, I saw Nick playing in Binghamton when he was with the Ottawa Senators. But these are some guys. Now, Nick came alive with 3 goals in a couple of games last week. Cam Atkinson is still sitting on that 4 goals, and it looked like there was a breakthrough about 9 days ago in Winnipeg, and then it's back to kind of being quiet. And Josh just can't seem to he can't seem to hit the net consistently. And when he does, he's hitting the goalie consistently. As that offensive core, I don't know, what have you just almost tore your hair out trying to figure out how to get these guys going?
See, I don't like with Cam. Cam, the past few games he's played 12 minutes, and he's not on the power play right now because I think it's important he get his 5-on-5 game going. I think Cam knows how to do it. I'm not having, as I probably would have done 3 years ago with Cam, have long conversations about it. I'm not. He knows how I feel about it. I think I know how he feels about it. I think he's very frustrated with it. I'll put him and Andy together. I think Andy has found his way as far as the energy he needs to bring in the game. Cam still needs to find that. And he found it after we had a pretty poignant team meeting, not one-on-one coach and player. It was coach and players in the team. Pretty poignant meeting there about the lack of energy from our top guys. Cam played. He did it for one game, but it's just not consistent enough. I think Andy has found a more consistent level of the energy he needs to play with, and that's why I think he's ending up with the puck around the goal quite a bit more. He needs to finish. There have been some important times in games. If he finishes, it could change an outcome of a game. Hasn't happened. But yeah, we're gonna keep on going about it. But Bobby, I'm not going to have. I'm not going to rip them. I'm not going to have these meetings. I've had the meetings with these. I've coached these guys now for 4 years. They know what the standard is. Now, I hate playing Cam 12 minutes. I hate it. I've done enough. I think 3 games in a row. I look at the end of the night. I say, man, that's I don't want to do that. But I have to give other people opportunity in situations that I usually put Cam in. And once I start seeing the energy level, I think it's going to help his game.
What guys do you see taking advantage of that? Or do you see guys that you're giving the extra minutes to that are using it well?
Well, Sonny Milano played 17 minutes the other night. No, Sonny, you talk about a guy that makes me pull my hair out away from the puck. He does. There are some major struggles with Sonny, as far as understanding how to play away from the puck. But then he is all over when we break the game down, not just goals and assists that everybody see at the end of the night, but who's creating the offense. Creating offense is breakouts out of our end zone, a good little subtle play there to get us into the end zone. Those are all things we chart, and Sonny's all over the map as far as how much offense he brings. He's just that skilled. I have to look away. I do. I have to look away sometimes in some of the stuff he does away from the puck, but I have to work with him, and I want to work with him because I think at the end of the process, and Sonny's not a young guy anymore, but he scored 14 goals 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. He scored 14 goals in the National Hockey League. We're starving for skill. I have to look at him, and so he's getting some of those minutes. I'm going to look at Tex now as our third center because I can't find Wenny again, and so Lenny's going to go on the fourth line and play left wing, and I'm going to see what Tex can do. With that philosophy, my eye looking only now, but for the future of the organization too, because I think Tex could be a really good center. If Wenny was lighting it up, I wouldn't be thinking about that. So if Cam was lighting it up, these things wouldn't be happening. But these are the things I have to do as a coach. And I'm not criticizing the guys. I'm just saying this is the lay of the land right now. We got to try to win some games. We're a 500 hockey club.
And as you said, we were talking about veteran guys. They've been through it before. And
we've had the conversations, Bobby. We've had them, and we don't need to have them again. I'd be insulting to them if I have to have those again. And so they're going to have to figure it out here, and I got to make decisions accordingly.
Another, I don't know if I want to use the word experiment, but another guy that you had a talking to with, and it seemed like it worked, then it didn't work, and then punishment's not the right word. He had to pay a price for what he did. Is Jonas Gustavsson. He's gotten back into the net. Not only has he not had a temper tantrum, but he's really starting to look like a number one goalie.
Yeah, he is play. He looks confident. Made some big saves. I forget which game it was the other night here. He makes big saves all the time. I just think the way he presents himself, and that process of him with his tantrums and all the things I had to do with him. I thought those things happen for a reason, and I always call them coaching opportunities. It was a great opportunity, and I think he's handled himself really well. Maybe something else happens, like with Elvis, the Elvis situation with him trying to do too much with the puck. I think it happens for a reason. I think a coach needs to step in, and that's a teaching opportunity. I watched Elvis's game the other night against the Islanders. He was really good, and he's improving. So. The big question mark about our goaltending, that hasn't been our problem with us with 11 losses. That hasn't been our problem. We just have not done enough and score that big goal at key times. I think our defense has been pretty good in what we've given up as far as scoring chances. We just have not scored that big goal at key times to change the momentum of the game, maybe even win a game.
And you do have to wonder, at least I wonder with Elvis, the other night they scored 0 goals. So even if you give up 0, you're going to overtime or a shootout, right? So I tell my son that all the time. If your team scores 0 goals, you're going to have a hard time winning a game. Even if they get 1 goal, you have to pitch a shutout. So I guess it would be nice somewhere along the line here if they could give him a little bit of goal support, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And but I watched him very carefully. And again, I don't profess to be a goaltending coach. The technical part, I like looking how they look, and I always use the word presenting. I can tell when an athlete is confident, but on the right side of it. I can tell when an athlete has no confidence, And I thought Elvis was right where he needed to be. Where prior, and listen, the gaff, as far as throwing one up the middle there, that's because of trying. I'll never question his effort. But you have to understand who you are in the National Hockey League, and I think he's gone through a nice process here to get a better definition of that right now.
Right. And you want to make a big play and get noticed, but you got noticed in the wrong way that day.
Yeah, sometimes not being noticed and just letting the team win the game for you, especially in this position of goaltending, is the best thing. And I think it was a really good road that, he took a wrong turn. We handled it together. And now he's right back on the road. And I think that's a really good situation for him.
Man, defensemen and goalies, it's like if nobody's talking about you, you did a great job.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they show up so much, and where the forwards, they can screw up there. No one's thinking about that turnover at the far blue line or maybe just a bad – like I think the play on their second goal, the Islanders' second goal, it was a terrible play by Jonesy, trying to force one in the middle of the ice there. And it was a terrible play by Sonny coming off the bench and I'm not sure what happens with it. It was a great play with the fly ball. But sometimes you don't talk about those plays in the offensive zone. You're picking on the defenseman and the goalie. There are some mistakes made down the other end, too.
Bet you Brad Shaw and Manny Legacy talk about those mistakes by the forwards.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Yeah, it's true.
That's only fair. Torts, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Talk next week.
Okay, Bobby. Thank you.
That's head coach John Tortorella. This has been Timeout with Torts. I'm Bob McElligott.